Paul Colman is a British-Australian pop rock musician and composer. He was born and brought up in London, and his family moved to Australia when Paul was 7. Paul has played with his own Paul Colman Trio, the extremely successful Australian Christian band the Newsboys, and now also as a solo artist. After a quiet period during the worst of the COVID pandemic, Paul is back on the road again with a 35-date European tour. That's 35 dates in only 40 days. My name is John Hebden and I'm a volunteer presenter with BCB Radio in Bradford in the UK. And Paul kindly pulled over for me on the Autobahn a couple of days ago and spoke to me, and I began by asking him how his tour was going.
Hi mate, yes, I'm very excited to be heading towards the UK. The tour is going great. I'm going to go out there and say it's my favourite tour I've ever done so far in my career.
Okay, so why is it what's making it your favourite tour?
I haven't really done a tour like this for a long time, even before COVID. Although I was kind of touring Europe, but it wasn't like 7 or 8 weeks, which this one is.
Yeah.
And before that, I'd kind of taken a bit of a break in a lot of ways to take some time for mental and emotional health. And so now that I'm kind of back at it, not sure whether it's going to continue or whether it's not, I don't know. I think I just feel freer, and if I could use an analogy, it feels like a lot of viruses have gone off the hard drive, so the programs are working better.
That's a great metaphor.
Mac users won't understand that, but PC people might.
Okay, so it's a very intense tour in that you've got 35 dates with hardly any days off. So you keeping going okay, are you?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm amazed. My voice feels really, really strong. My energy is good. The days that I have off, I just pretty much stay in bed and sleep until late afternoon, which sometimes when people are hosting me, they think, how can you do this? And I'm like, did you look at my last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So I'm actually feeling great. Like I had a show last night. I've got one tonight, and then a couple of days to get up to Holland. So I actually feel really, really good. I feel rested. And I think my voice kind of is one of those voices that prefers hard work, so it's kind of feeling strong.
Okay, I assume, Paul, that you're touring just by yourself. You won't have any other musicians with you. Is that right?
Yes, although I just did a number of shows in Germany with a drummer, a mate of mine called Burke, and then the next 2 shows I'm playing alongside another German friend of mine called Klaas Jambor. But most of the shows, probably about 85% of them, I've just been on my own, with a guitar, a stomp pedal, and a microphone. Okay,
and just to give our listeners an idea of what they could expect if they come and see you in Bradford or Leeds, what kind of stuff are you playing?
Yeah.
I guess you're playing your own songs. You may be playing some Newsboys songs, are you?
I'm not really doing any Newsboys songs. But yeah, my own catalogue. A couple of the shows, I've done a couple of Larry Norman songs because I'm a fan of his. But I think what I've seen from my shows is it's like in the last 20 years, kind of gospel music, particularly that gospel music that has been recorded and produced and promoted, has been kind of what people refer to as worship music, which I guess is kind of like vertical lyrics to God, or some sort of public proclamation of faith. I was really inspired by singer-songwriter. So I'm an entertainer and I'm a songwriter. I write songs about people's lives and stories. I don't really write many songs that are directed to God. I feel like there's enough people telling him who he is, and I like to write songs that are maybe 3 or 4 steps back from something obvious. I grew up listening to songwriters like that they had something to say, but it wasn't easy to figure it out straight away. There usually ends up being a lot of laughter at my shows. I have a lot of fun. I mean, it really depends on the audience. Like, if the audience wants to go there, I'll go there. Like, I love to entertain and make people laugh. And I do have something to say, but for some reason it always seems to come out in a way that is not too heavy or bashing you over the head. I mean, this is what people have told me. Like, I'm not watching my show, so, I have to rely on what people have told me about what they think of the show, and that's kind of the feedback that I've got, is that it's fun and it's serious, and they're kind of singer-songwriter songs about life and faith and me pursuing truth. That's really what my shows are like. They're very interactive.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, we should have said that that you're a Christian, and that faith is obviously an important part of your life and has been an important part of your music. But I think you've kind of explained how that fits into the show very well there. So that's very helpful. Thank you, Paul. What's your situation at the moment regarding recordings? Because according to your Wikipedia page, you've not released anything since 2016. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is accurate. And let me just say one thing before I say that with regard to the faith component. I mean, you have to understand, I grew up in Australia. Like, you know what the Australians are like. You guys sent them over there. They're a rough and beautiful bunch, and they hate religion and they hate authority. So these are the people I grew up singing to. And so I learned how to be subtle with my songs. I learned how to be fun with my songs. I learned how to weave a message into a story, and it's one of those things that I've got people that come to my shows who have absolutely no passion at all for any faith in God as we understand. And I've got people who are absolutely hardcore Christians, and they all seem to walk away pretty happy. Yeah. But in terms of recordings, what happened was I kind of took a bit of a break from myself, and in a lot of ways I had to step away and choose my own mental and emotional health over self-promotion. And the funny thing is that the more therapy I did, the more I found it harder to promote myself. It was like I was living in the house that I was flipping, that I was, furnishing. And so I've written probably, hundreds of songs since I last released a record, but I just haven't felt, this major passion to release something. And to be fair, I haven't, received, any cry from the world saying, what we're really missing is more Paul Colman music. So I think it's been nice for me to take a break, and I've got plenty of songs, but I just haven't, I kind of haven't pushed my career for a while. I've been focusing on being a dad and focusing on being a good man, and that's taken a lot of my efforts. And then when the market did open after COVID, I was on the road speaking on behalf of non-profits, and that's really what I've done more than anything. So this tour is the first tour in a long time where I've put my face out there and gone out on the road, and it feels very different though. It feels very healthy and very fun, and so yeah, I haven't released anything for a while, but I don't think anyone's really complaining about that. Not even me,
Okay. I've got two other things to ask you about. So maybe it's related to what you've just been talking about, but on your website, you talk about, very mysteriously, the year of silence that's coming soon. So are you able to say anything about the year of silence, or does that have to remain a mystery?
It's going to remain a mystery, but I'll tell you it's a novel that I'm writing.
Okay.
It's kind of about current day, and it's a novel. I'm about 85,000 words into it, and I'm not sure that I'm a good writer or not yet. I know that I've got a good idea, but I'm trying to figure out if I'm a writer or if I've got a good idea and someone else needs to kind of help me. So that's what that's all about. It's a good mysterious picture, that though, isn't it?
It filled me with questions without sort of giving anything away, really. So it's very clever, yeah. Well done, yeah. The other interesting thing on your fascinating website, which is the thing that you call your very own song. So tell us how that works.
That's a little business where I write songs for people's special occasions. So if you listen to the samples on there, you'll find songs about people's graduations, about weddings, about birthdays. One of the things that I struggled with when I signed to a record label and I had managers and agents agents and that sort of stuff was that the model of the music industry really doesn't matter whether you're U2 or whether you're someone like me. It's really the same model, and that is you make a record, you promote the record, and then you tour the record. Now, if you're U2, you're going to be touring that in stadiums, and you're going to, have radio promotions, things on national TV, and you're going to go on the road for a couple of years. I have found that model to just not be something that I really enjoy. And the other thing, too, is that the more popular you get, the more conservative it gets, because now you've got a stage crew, now you've got a lighting crew, now you've got all these different people that they're expecting you to do the same thing the same time every night. And that drives me nuts. I can't do that. I don't like doing the same thing. So I've accepted that it's the enemy of, what I do is the enemy of branding. It's the enemy of commercial success. It's the enemy of all those things, but it makes me really happy to have a very diverse platform on which I work. So as you can tell from my website, I produce records, I do shows, I sell health insurance, I do voiceovers, I write books, but also that business is where people say, hey, I want you to write a song for my daughter or my wife or my husband or my friend or whoever. And if I wanted to make a big commercial business out of that, I would probably have a country version, a jazz version, a rock version, a reggae version, and I would just put their name in. But I just can't do that. So every time I do it, I write a completely new original song, and then they choose how they want to be recorded. And I get a real kick out of it, but I don't really want to do more than 4 or 5 a year, in the same way as I don't want to sell health insurance every day, in the same way that I don't want to do voiceovers every day, in the same way that I don't want to tour every day, in the same way that I don't want to produce every day. But I like the variety, and I'm aware of the fact that it's the enemy of branding. But I found that not only does it work with my flaring ADHD problems, but also I really enjoy my life. I feel like it's kind of a smorgasbord rather than just one thing.
Paul, I love the fact that you're kind of following your heart to be something that's a bit different and to view the world differently from the way most musicians do. So it sounds kind of radical and interesting and perhaps freeing in some ways.
Well, maybe. It's just that I don't really consider myself a musician anyway.
Okay.
I consider myself probably a communicator. Whether I'm walking down the street talking to people, whether I'm in an elevator talking to people, or whether I'm in a coffee shop, or whether I'm in a church building or a restaurant or a bar, or whether I'm using music or whether I'm just talking, I feel like, my job on this earth is to love God and love other people, starting with myself. And a lot of my life I did a terrible job loving myself, which is what I realized is why I did a terrible job loving other people. But since I kind of started therapy like 12, 15 years ago, and since I started to get to know who I am and what I want, I've realized that what I'm doing is what I really love doing, because it's diverse, it's inclusive. I've never needed the word inclusive, by the way. That's not a new one to me. I just enjoy people, and music is one way to get to people. And when I listen to some of my songs, I think, geez, I'm actually okay at that. I didn't think I was very good, but then that's not bad. That's all right. Let's go and tour that around. That's not too bad. But in the end, when I'm at a show, I'm not thinking about music. I'm looking at the people and I'm thinking about them. And I believe that God's Spirit lives inside of me. And Jesus of Nazareth said, if you're led by the Spirit, you're like the wind. And the wind is unpredictable. And so I like to think that I'm unpredictable, but respectful. And so I'm having the time of my life on this tour. It's the most I've ever enjoyed being on the road, probably because it's the most I've ever enjoyed being myself. And so I can't wait to get to the UK, because what you have to understand is I was born in London in 1967.
Yes.
And I've sung I have never once in my life sung in my own home country. So these two shows at this time in my life, I'm touring since the 90s, is the first time I'm ever playing in England. And I'm so happy to be doing so. Okay,
well, it will be the pinnacle of your creative experience. and you're performing live, Paul. So yeah, in Leeds and Bradford, you've chosen very well.
I know it will. I know it will.
Paul, it's been lovely to talk to you, and
yes.
It sounds like you're just a really interesting guy, and I hope people come out in large numbers. They should do, to come and see you in West Yorkshire next week.
Well, I would definitely love them to come out in large numbers, but if they don't, that's not shocking to me.
Okay.
But I'd love them to.
Okay. And you've been listening to Australian musician Paul Colman talking to me, John Hebden, volunteer presenter at BCB Radio in Bradford. Paul will be playing at the Meanwood Barn in Leeds on June the 3rd and at Costa Coffee in Shipley on June the 4th. The Costa gig starts at 6:30pm. So thanks very much to Paul for his time, and to Alan Gibson for setting up the interview, and also for putting together the UK section of Paul's tour. And please subscribe, listen and leave comments on my YouTube channel, and I will see you again soon.